So this panel, we've heard about it repeatedly, virtual desktop infrastructure, VDI. We're also going to be hearing about desktop as a service, or DAAS. And joining us are true leaders in this field. Now, I don't know if you see this Hollywood Squares the way I see it. So let's take a look-see here. So with the HP Anywhere on the bottom left, okay, so we've got Ziad Lamam. He's head of product for HP Anywhere, formerly Teradici. Ruben Spruitt. By the way, am I pronouncing that properly, Ruben?
Totally fine with me. All good.
Okay. Would you prefer a different pronunciation? We've always known each other first name basis, and we never.
Yeah, let's do that. Just Ruben. All good.
Okay. So Ruben, senior technologist at Nutanix, and my new boss, Thomas Poppelgaard. He's CEO of Poppelgaard. It's an absolute pleasure that you're all here. So how about we do a quick roundtable introduction about each of your products. Ruben, I'm going to start with yourself. Tell us a little bit about Nutanix, but also DAAS like a pro. So this is an organization you're part of, which is one of our media sponsors. You've done some research as well, so maybe you could give us a little information about that too.
Yeah, for sure. Like DAAS like a pro is an community-driven effort. Last 7 years, we ask questions around end-user computing, VDI, DAAS, and how infrastructure is sized, how it's being used, and many people respond to that survey. And the inside of the survey is a white paper, which is freely available at DAAS like a pro, which gives great insights for planning, for future planning, for just internal conversations. So yeah, great content, free to use, community-driven, no sponsorship, no sort of money involved, all like community love around end-user computing. In that end-user computing space, there's a great solution called Frame, Nutanix Frame specifically. We are a desktop as a service solution, born in the cloud 9 years ago. My company was acquired by Nutanix a little bit more than 4 years ago. And in essence, we make like end-user computing, virtual applications in desktop super simple. Run any application in your browser, including high-end graphics, resource-intensive applications, and so on. VDI made simple. You can summarize it like that as well.
Fantastic. And Ziad Lamam, please, I'd love to hear more about HP Anywhere and your work.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Great to be here, Neil and the team. So HP Anywhere is really the secure remote access solution. And we like to think of this as a way to access your digital workspace. I know we're going to talk about VDI and desktop as a service, but it's been really interesting to see the previous speakers and panelists. I think we've almost already been talking about the future of VDI. And so HP Anywhere is really a flexible solution that you can use either in the public cloud or in your on-premise data center. So you can actually access both deployment models using the same software solution. And similar to Ruben, I came from Teradici, which was acquired by HP over the past year. And really, we brought together the two remote access solutions from Teradici and from HP and really built that into one better together solution. So
very good. And Thomas, love to hear some words about Poppelgaard.
Yeah. So my name is Thomas Poppelgaard, and I'm based in Denmark. Here the funny accent. And my company Poppelgaard next year is 10 years old. What I do for a living is I design actually VDI DAAS solutions for customers globally. So it's everything from health check to assessment to designing VDI DAAS solutions. And the beautiful thing is actually I'm not tied into kind of actually any vendor. Of course, each vendor have its pros and cons, right? But in the end, I design what customer needs. And I think the nice thing is, some like apples, some like pears, or some like oranges. And the beautiful thing is there's many choices and options. Yeah, and it's great to be back here in TIFCA Summit.
All right, fantastic, fantastic. So we're, I did some research ahead of this, and I learned a few things. VDI and DAAS is often used interchangeably, and that might not be correct. So I was hoping we could differentiate the two terms. Ziad, would you like to take this one? Can you define VDI, and can we define DAAS?
I can, yeah, and I'll try, and I'm sure my colleagues here will chime in. But I think traditionally VDI, or virtual desktop infrastructure, referred to the traditional VDI solutions from VMware and Citrix, for example, that you'd basically deploy in your on-prem data center, and you provide a virtual desktop to your users. DAAS, or DAAS, is really using the public cloud for that same deployment model. And now that clouds are available all over the world and performance is great and bandwidth is really good in most regions, the public cloud model is becoming much more common and much more attractive. So those were the two distinguishers. But I mean, even in this session today, I saw someone, our Microsoft colleague there, referred to it as cloud VDI. So it really is different. To me, they are kind of one and the same. For the user, it's really not important to know where your desktop is. The important thing is that that user has a great user experience.
All right, very good.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Like, it's from user, doesn't matter. Like another quick twist to it, like you could also say VDI is software with people with skills like Thomas, who can design and implement and maintain and support a platform, while DAAS is a service where the control plane is like something like Microsoft or Amazon or Citrix or VMware or Frame is delivering. And the workload machines, the VMs, can run in public cloud, but also can run in on-prem, depending on which DAAS solution you use. So software equals like VDI, in my opinion, and DAAS equals service. At the end, as you had mentioned, the end user, and also like we are also end user. We shouldn't care like where the desktop and app is running. We care about like great user experience and secure and easy to maintain things like that.
So Ruben, actually, I'll follow up with you. And by the way, VDI was discussed even in like John Petty presented this morning, and he acknowledged VDI as well. So can you just underscore, why is VDI, why is virtual desktop infrastructure and desktop as a service, why is it so critical to I'll say the present and the future of the remote work and play industry?
Yeah, good question. Also, when we as like this group talk about VDI, often we think, okay, that's all desktop. But if we talk about VDI, we also mean like just applications itself, running in a data center in public cloud and sort of presented as application. Often people think, well, VDI is always like the Windows desktop interface. That is one method to sort of provide access to an interface, but it's not the only method. It's still like virtual apps and desktops are, I would say, interchangeable from that perspective. To go back to your question, so why is it important? Why is it important in today's world of remote work and play? Why is it like it's a super enabler to provide access to mission critical applications and run these apps close to where the data is. That could be on-prem, can be in cloud, can be both, without any sort of I wouldn't say any, but like limited security risk, because there's no data on the endpoint. The endpoint is being used to display virtual apps and desktops, and a streaming protocol will be used to make it happen with a great user experience. So easier management because it's all centralized. Run the data close to where the apps are, or run the apps close to where the data is, depending on how you look at it. Are all key elements why this VDI and DAAS are key elements in remote work and play of today. That's, I would say, the main angle. There's much more to cover, but for sure there will be more questions as well.
So very good. Thomas, it's interesting when you shared, you described several vendors, okay, and you say, some like it this way, some like it this way. Why are there so many vendors? And what I mean by that is, what is the unique need that each of these vendors is serving that is cause for that, those different companies in the market?
Well, there's been, some originally Microsoft has been one of the early ones with the RDP protocol, right? And I still think it's one of the most actually used daily. We just take it kind of for granted when we connect into a machine, RDP into a server or PC, right? And then there's TeamViewer, which is remoting also. Then Citrix has been quite, a solution that's been a long time there, and then VMware. But I get, the reason why a company like Frame and became now part of Nutanix is just simplified VDI, right? It's built from the ground up in DAAS, running in the browser, all the backends, and I love what they've done. And that's, Citrix, it's taken them a lot of years, like 20 to get there. What Frame did in a much shorter time. And that just amplifies that, that was built by customer need, right? And that's why there are so many different solutions for things like Teradata, that's built for media entertainment, right? Where they have a very rich, protocol for specific media entertainment. But I'm like, end of the day, most of them, they're doing kind of the same thing, delivering an experience, right? That I guess it all depends on what you're trying to accomplish. I do like, just to emphasize, I do like also what Microsoft are doing, because they are also being kind of provocative and actually shaking up the VDI industry with what they are doing. And what they've done with Windows 365, it took me actually several years to just understand, why did they build this product? But they, I still think it's going to take some time for people to understand what it is. But when they really see what it is, it's just click off a button, and then you have a machine running in the cloud. Because it's like Office 365, where people are getting used to, now it's running Office 365 on the cloud. That's what Windows 365 is, right? Where they have taken a super complicated infrastructure and just automated it by a click of a button. That's a very difficult thing to do. And Microsoft actually accomplished that. And that also makes, the other VDI vendors like, what do we then do to compete against what Microsoft are doing, right? Because, I guess I can also go on. What I do want to just say, what we don't talk about is also Linux. There are actually a lot of companies where they work in, deep learning, they work in many other kind of stuff like gaming, right? And that's using Linux, right? That's also, there's VDI for that.
Well, let me ask Ziad, if I can. It sounds like you could run pretty much any application from the cloud, and then VDI distributes it, and as an employee or a team member, you're able to use it on the client device of your choice, or whatever your VDI or actually your DAAS provider would do. Do you find some applications work better than others? Like, are there things that VDI, and I should call it DAAS, right? DAAS is really good at that stand out, and others that are more challenging?
Yeah, for sure. It has gotten a lot better. I'll have to start and say that. There were a lot more, I would say, application compatibility or even performance issues. But I think everybody understands that if you're going to move to a DAAS model, then the minimum bar is it's got to be at least as good as it was on your local PC, right? Now, with that said, too, something Thomas touched on is there are applications that are Windows-based, Linux-based, and even Mac OS, right? And so you also need to make sure you are able to service all of those operating systems. And that's something that we've done with the HP Anywhere solution, is be able to support all three operating systems with or without GPUs, really to hit all of those use cases. So kind of a little longer answer to say, the goal is to support any application, any operating system, any use case. power user, knowledge worker. But certainly within that, you're going to find applications that are really bandwidth heavy. If you run those in a DAAS or a cloud-based environment, those environments have amazing, network connectivity. So you're not going to be limited by the bandwidth that you would traditionally at home. You're really now limited by that streaming protocol, as we've discussed here. And those are all, very efficient. So high bandwidth applications, those are going to perform really great because you're now connected directly to that cloud data center. I think where the whole industry has some work to do is, we touched on it with Tom and the client team. It's the video conferencing applications. Still some work to do there to make those, really good in a virtual environment. But all of the players are working on that, I would say, to make it better.
It's crossed my desk more than once that collaboration through VDI is somewhat more challenging. Mm-hmm. I think you're alluding to this as well. Can you elaborate a little bit as to what that challenge is and why?
Yeah, for sure. So, we're all using Zoom. I use Zoom and Teams, in different meetings, and they work great on a local PC. Once you're into a cloud desktop, there are optimizations that need to be done to make it work just as well. So that's kind of one layer of the onion. And then the other thing we recognize is, especially when we serve some of the higher performance users, they also want to collaborate just the way they could when we all met in person, right? Where you could, go over someone's shoulder and look at them doing some creative design or graphics editing. And so we've also added collaboration capability within our software to be able to collaborate at the really, really top end. So lossless pixels, really high quality. And that works in conjunction with something like Zoom or Teams, where you're having video and audio conversations. So that's something that we did over the pandemic to really enable, users to collaborate no matter where they are.
Okay, fantastic. So Ruben, let's talk a little bit about, the research your group did. And by the way, this is a question I think all of you will be able to answer. Is when the participants of your survey heard the term desktop as a service, the number one thing that came up in mind was flexibility. So, maybe you can underscore what kind of flexibility do customers want, the customers of virtual desktop infrastructure and DAAS, or desktop as a service?
Yeah, that can mean different things. So flexibility to run apps close to the data. In public cloud, there are 100 plus regions when you look at Azure, Amazon, Google combined. So that's one angle. Hybrid also is connected to flexibility. So maybe public cloud doesn't fit in your use case. Maybe it's better to go from cloud first to cloud smart and define, hey, is this application worth running in public cloud? Or maybe better to run on-prem from a cost or performance or whatever reason perspective. So flexibility to run workload machines on-prem. There are certain DAAS vendors who can support that as well. So that's flexibility. Flexibility to scale up and down. And we saw that in the early days of the pandemic. Scale up. A lot of customers use and still using DAAS to support remote work and play, work from everywhere scenarios. And they still continue doing so, but there are also customers say, well, okay, for now I will just trim my DAAS usage a little bit down, and I want to create a more permanent solution for XYZ. So flexibility, scale up and down is part of that as well. I would say without compromising user experience, as Jed mentioned, and also admin experience. We always talk about user experience, which is for sure key. You need to be on par and top notch with user experience, but also the admin experience is important. The solution should be simple to use from a user and from an admin and from a developer perspective. And often we focus only on the user side, which again is super, super important. But we forgot about, well, what about the admin? How easy is it to get up and running? How flexible can it be to change based on conditions in the organization? And that's something we should focus on as well.
Okay, very good. Thomas, I have to believe that you get an earful from different customers that are interested in VDI and DAAS solutions. I mean, we heard Ruben share his list. Does certain types of flexibilities come up in your conversations when you're dealing with potential VDI customers?
Yeah, so I see a mix of both on-prem, where customers have their own servers in the data centers, and that comes down to trust. Another thing is data, where the data is. So even just delivering great user experience, but getting the data part of the application is also user experience, which is why some customers I work with, they want to do cloud, but then it's not that simple for some customers, the larger customers, right? So they need to transition to cloud, which is why they then still are building these, traditional solutions. But then I see customers where they're using cloud for bursting, where they can just spin up machines quickly. And that is, of course, it makes sense when you're acquiring a company, you're working with external consultants. But then, there are also the companies who are doing the pure native DAAS, where it's running pure in public clouds, where they're building everything from there, right? They're not tied into legacy backends and so on. So it's a mix I see of really everything. And again, I'm in a lucky position. I work where one day I work with one solution, another day I work with another. It's also good to see, how the technology is evolving, because these protocol wars, of the different technologies is still an evolution happening. And I like, that they're pushing the boundaries. And that also makes sense, because we're getting, even though the bandwidth pipes in different, continents of the world are getting larger, in Europe, they are getting better. But the problem is, then we're getting, larger screens, right? We're getting 8K monitors, right? NVIDIA is supporting now multiple 8K monitors in VDI. I'm like, some people might say, oh my God, you're getting a business demand of multiple 8K monitors, right?
Well, what about virtuality, like with two screens and low latency, high frame rate?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just pushing the boundaries, but yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, very good. So Ziad, a question for you as well. Now a colleague of mine said this, so you tell me if there's truth to it or not. It's a tough one for you. So during the pandemic, my understanding is that one of the resources that was difficult to come by were VPN services. That it was something that was running out, and it was difficult to serve everybody that needed a VPN, because everybody was working from home. So now what I read, now you please correct me if I'm wrong, is with HP Anywhere, they market that they don't need a VPN. So can you elaborate a little bit more as to what you're doing from a security perspective?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, VPNs are maybe a little misunderstood, right? I think it's also part of how we used to connect to our remote network or our corporate desktop. And a lot of people still require a VPN to connect securely. It basically connects you to your corporate firewall, right? In the virtual desktop world, there's actually a gateway technology that basically eliminates the need for a VPN and gets you access in an even more secure way, right? And really just protects that virtual environment rather than open up your entire PC or endpoint device to your corporate firewall. So kind of first and foremost, VPNs are more of a legacy way to connect to your remote desktop. And through HP Anywhere, and in fact, most of the remote access solutions, you don't need a VPN anymore using gateway technology. And so that's a big advantage these days, because you want to be able to connect quickly, and you don't want to sit there and wait for a VPN. And then to Ruben's comment, from an administrative perspective, you don't want to have that burden on IT as well, on the admin, to go and deploy and manage yet another software component that, by the way, is complex, is costly, and sometimes doesn't work, right? So that is a big advantage of moving to a VDI or a desktop as a service model, is you can eliminate that and actually improve your security story. And that's something that I hope more adoption happens over the next few years.
Okay, very good. We're just about out of time. I have a question I'd like you all to answer. You'll have to be somewhat brief, okay, because we're running out of time. So, I'm hearing, there's some challenges a little bit with collaboration, like some things are harder than others, certain apps are harder than others. Thinking from the world of client, cloud, network, and everything in between, are there things the industry could do to make your jobs easier from a user experience perspective? Like, are there things you'd like to see the industry doing? I'll start from top left. So Ruben, you go ahead.
I think make licensing easier. That's a comment to Microsoft.
Yeah.
That will make life easier. Like same level playing field to be able to run single user, multi-user across clouds, use Office across clouds, that type of conversation. It's out of my sort of comfort zone, but that's what I hear from the field and from customers. Making sort of more competition on the GPU space is helpful. Competition is healthy anyway. So Intel, AMD, NVIDIA, more competition on that side is helpful, both in public cloud and on-prem. Yeah, so these two things for sure. I can think of a couple of other things, but you said be brief, and I want to give Ziad and Thomas some airtime as well. So
that's good. And I'll go back the way we started. So Ziad, do you have thoughts on, what could the industry do to make your life easier?
Yeah, I'm gonna take a leap here and diverge from the technology a little bit and say, one thing we found in the research report we did is IT and kind of the people side of the business, HR, those really need to intersect and work to create policies and a really good people experience for us to utilize our home office and our, at the office even better. That I think there's some work there to be done. I think we're past that stage of, the pandemic's caused everyone to work in a hybrid way, but now what does that mean? And what are the big idea policies that are going to really attract people to collaborate and go back to the office? So for me, it's kind of the non-technology side of the world now that we want to work on. So. Okay,
very good. And Thomas, what would you like to see from the industry?
Well, so there is. I've done a lot of research together with the AMD about video conferencing in VDI, and there it definitely confirmed that there is a big need to embrace a larger ecosystem when it comes to devices, and I think it is a big problem when it comes to redirection of video content. Especially video conference is such a commoditized platform now. Customers are using like Teams, right? And to be more specific, it's Google, Chrome OS, and I think it's something that the ecosystem needs to embrace much bigger. Not just because I know it's a competitive thing, but they need to look at what customers also want, right? So I see customers where they strategic buy Chrome OS, then they found out the VDI strategic platform they cannot go that route, right? So they are forced to buy Windows PCs. Now Microsoft might like that, right? But I'm like, then they're not listening to the customer. And I know, that is most of the time it's a really big problem across VDI vendor space. When it comes to Zoom, WebEx, Team and Meet, right? So, but I know also Google, they need to do more, better work on optimizing their Meet platform in VDI. They are actually working on it. But yeah, that for me would be, I think that's really a lot of work, and it needs to be simple. That's, I think, my key. It needs to get integrated into the products, not installing on end devices and inside a VDI. It's too complicated right now. I think it's actually really horrible, both from a security perspective, but even from an admin, it's kind of a nightmare working with these, video conferencing redirection optimization. Not to scare any people away, but it is not, an easy task.
That's why we on the frame side have a completely different approach, because I totally agree. There's a long list of things you need to meet before you can use offloading technology, and then you often have a great user experience. But there's also other technology where you don't need all this offloading stuff and still can deliver a great user experience. So, but that's a different conversation. But that's also requires like a different mindset to solve issues in a different way than others are doing, and that's good. That's guts.
So it's really what I will say is it's really encouraging. I mean, there's different VDI DAAS providers. You're all there to meet the needs of these remote work and play users or customers. And there's obviously advancements happening. So yeah. I want to thank you all for participating with this panel. I think it turned out great. And my tagline at the end of each session is I got to demote you now to attendees, but I hope you're going to stick around because there's even more to come. So just stand by.
Thanks.
Thank you. I'll be here.
Bye.
Thank you.